Hey everyone, this is Lolcohol, and in this video I'm going to be sharing some tips on how to improve any build that you might be playing. And I know what you're thinking, that I'm going to tell you to just buy better gear and spend money that you don't have, but there are actually a lot of things you can do to improve your build that won't cost a lot. First off, check your flasks. Flasks can add a ton of utility and survivability to your character. I like to go to the Menagerie because Einhar offers a lot of really useful flask mods, such as immunity to curses, bleed, cold, and ignite, and so on. My favorite ones are of heat, which gives you immunity to freeze and chill. You can see that over here, as well as of warding, which gives you immunity to curses. This will open up the amount of maps you can run because things like elemental weakness just will no longer matter. You just pop this flask and that just doesn't affect you anymore. Another one I love is of staunching. This gives you immunity to bleed. Corrupted blood can kill you very quickly, so having this is a massive survivability boost. Other ones that are really good, of curing. This gives you immunity to poison. So this is very great against El Hezmin, since most of his poison attacks just won't do any damage to you anymore. Of grounding gives you immunity to shock, and of dousing gives you immunity to ignite. These are great mods for specific boss fights. So yeah, look at your flasks and see, are they as good as they could be? Next up, what I like to do is head over to PoE Ninja to the build section. So we're going to click up there on builds. At the top, you're going to see a list of different ascendancies. So in my case, I'm playing Chieftain. So I'll click Chieftain. Then over here, you can see main skills. So I'm playing Discharge. So I'm going down to Discharge. A whole lot of builds are going to pop up. These are the top rated builds, I suppose, the ones with the most life and damage. I don't know exactly how it's organized, but these are going to be good builds. At the top, you can see things like life, ES, depth, DPS. So I was struggling with my DPS. So I clicked this, it organized DPS from top to bottom. And then I said, okay, let's see what this person's got. So I click their name and a whole lot of information pops up. So before looking at all of this gear, what we're going to do is look at the gems. So if we scroll down, we can see the gems. First thing I noticed was that this person's gem sockets were different to mine. I think I had something instead of Unbound Ailments. I think I had Swift Affliction. When I swapped over, suddenly my DPS went up. So check out the gem links for the main skill that you're using, because sometimes you've just got it a bit wrong, and by just swapping out 1 or 2 gems, you can immediately improve your build. Also, have a look at some of the utility skills that these players are using. For example, this person has Vile Molten Shell with cast when damage taken. This is a survivability utility setup, so things like this can again improve your build massively. Have a look around, analyze what this person is doing, and see, maybe you can incorporate some of it into your build. And again, this, swapping out gems or having a different gem link setup, this is not expensive. This is practically free. Next up, let's have a look at the gear. This is when you might see something that costs a lot. Maybe they've got Farrell's Fur and you think, oh, that's 7x, that's too much, I can't afford it. But sometimes you'll see items that are not that expensive. So for example, this player is using Realm Ender. I was using a really expensive staff that I crafted, and I thought that that had to be better, right? I looked at pretty much every build and it was using Realm Ender with Call of the Brotherhood. So I went on PoE Trade and searched Realm Ender 6 link. Guess what it cost? It was 50 chaos for a 6 link. Whereas my stuff, I probably spent 5 or 10x trying to craft it. And once I equipped Realm Ender, my DPS skyrocketed. So small things like this might not actually be as expensive as you think. You might check out a build and say, hold on, this guy's got cheaper gear than I do, and their damage is way higher. So don't just assume that someone's build is better because they've spent more money on it. There might be a few things that you can improve that don't cost a lot. Again, looking at their flasks, I mean, there are some unique flasks that are great, but remember, if you can't afford unique flasks, Einhar is your best friend. That's a ton of utility. One other thing that I must mention, sometimes a build will have an absolutely game-changing unique. In the example of my build, the Red Nightmare, this allows me to sustain endurance charges without the use of the Red Blade Banner Shield. So before I had the Red Nightmare, I had to use the Red Blade Banner Shield, and that was reducing my damage because I had to use a one-handed weapon. The moment I equipped this, I didn't need to use that shield anymore, and I could equip a 6-link weapon, and then my damage jumped up because of that. So see, are there any maybe kind of small things that you might not notice or overlook, like a jewel, which just completely opens your build up? Next up, we're going to look at the passive tree. So this gives us this sort of, not a heat map, but just a simplified version of the passive tree. If you want something a bit more familiar looking, you can use this import code for path of building and copy it into your path of building and have something that's a bit easier to see. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to explain some things. First off, look at your ascendancy. Maybe you've got the wrong points allocated. Probably not, but maybe. Another thing, again, the example of my build was that I was missing some really important clusters. Not cluster jewels, but clusters of points. So this one at the top, I didn't have this allocated. It added a lot of fire damage and fire dot multi, which are important to my build. I allocated that, shuffled some points around, my DPS went up. Same thing over here. This again adds fire damage or ignite, something like that, but I allocated them, damage went up, and I just made some small adjustments to my tree. I probably took out 10, 15 orbs of regret. That's actually free because if you do most of the quests in the game, you should have enough to respec 10 or 15 points. So again, look at the passive tree. See, maybe you missed something. That's probably a free change to your build. You don't need to spend money to change points. Maybe if you need to make drastic changes, you will have to buy a few orbs of regret. But honestly, with the rewards that you get from quests and orbs of regret that you pick up, I doubt you're going to have to spend any money to respec your tree. Alright, so this is possibly something that will cost you a lot of money, but maybe not. Cluster jewels. Cluster jewels can be completely broken and add a huge amount of damage. So again, in the example of my build, I didn't have any cluster jewels equipped. I looked, and pretty much every build I looked at had these cluster jewels with these passives, Blowback and Cooked Alive. Blowback, Burning Bright. I look here, Burning Bright, Prismatic Heart. And I kept seeing that over and over and over. I looked at those stats and then I realized, oh wow, this is going to add so much damage. And guess what? I got these cluster jewels, I rolled some of these mods, and bingo, bango, bongo. And it added a ton of damage. So look, some of these cluster jewel bases might be a bit pricey, but some of them might be kind of cheap, and you'll spend more money trying to roll them to hit the modifiers you want than actually the price of the jewel. So don't overlook these. Maybe see what these cost and see how much damage they might add. For the final tip of the video, and this again might cost you a bit of money, but it's so worth it. Check the quality of your gems. So for example, Ignite Proliferation, the quality on this adds 10% increased fire damage. That's a little bit of damage. Let's see on Discharge. This is 20% increased elemental damage. Unbound Ailments, this is 10% damage over time multiplier and increased duration of enemies. You get the picture. All of these add up to add a ton of damage. In this build, just by qualitying up my gems, I got 20% more damage. And all of these gems cost about 1.5 exalts worth of GCPs to get to 20%. I think GCPs now are about 80 to 1x. So with 1x, you can get 4 of your gems to 20% quality. So if you've got a 6-link like this, it's about 1.5x. You get all your gems to 20% quality, and for 1.5x getting 20% more damage, maybe even more than that in some builds, that is super worth it. I know a lot of you might not have 1.5x, but if you do, have a look at your gems. Do they have maximum quality? If they don't, buy some GCPs. All in all, after going through a few of these builds on PoE Ninja and making a few adjustments to my build and spending a little bit of money, maybe around 1 or 2x, maybe 3 or 4 if you include the GCPs I bought. I went from being unable to clear T10 bosses to being able to clear T16 bosses easily, as well as killing Shaper, Uber Elder, and Cyrus 8. So have a look at your build. Improving your build might not cost as much as you think. There's tons of little cheap improvements that you can make here and there that'll all add up. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you liked it, please be sure to like and subscribe. From next week, I'll be starting a series on crafting for noobs, so be sure to check back on Monday. Have a wonderful day, everyone. I just spilled my tea on my table. Stay safe in Path of Exile and real life. Bye-bye.